other. Linguists usually say that, for example, language Y and language Z are distinct if a speaker of language Y and a speaker of language Z cannot understand each other. Meaning, if Y is speaking their language, Z cannot understand that language. And also Z cannot understand language Y. So in such a scenario, we say those languages are distinct. They are distinct. But there is also a case where you find when language A is spoken, language B understands it. So language A and language B, they understand each other, although they are not the same. So in these circumstances, we have a concept we call mutual intelligibility. Mutual intelligibility, which refers to understanding between people who speak different languages. They speak different languages, but they understand each other. You know, we have people who speak dialects. I want you to take an example of the Kalenjin community. Kalenjin community is a composition of very many Kalenjin dialects. We have the Kipsigis, we have the Sabaot, we have the Keyo, we have the Nandi, we have the Tugen, among many. So you may find a Kipsigis and a Tugen, they don't speak the same dialects, but they understand each other. They understand each other. So in such a case, we say the two languages, the Kipsigis, the Tugen, are mutually intelligible. So if they understand each other in that way, even if they are different, we say they are mutually intelligible. The same, you can talk about the Luyas, where you have the Bukusu, the Maragoli, name them. There are many. They may not be speaking the same dialects, but they are able to understand each other. So they are mutually intelligible. So that is what we call mutual intelligibility. So on language behavior and language systems, we can say that these two are interconnected aspects of linguistics. They are interconnected aspects of linguistics that help us understand how humans communicate and how language is structured. When we talk about how humans communicate, we are referring to language behavior. And when we talk about how language is structured, we are talking about language systems. Now, language behavior refers to the way individuals use language in a social context. The way you use language, people observe, people listen to you. That is now language behavior. The language they listen to as you speak, the language they read as you write, that is now language behavior. When we look at this language behavior, we can look at some aspects like communication practices. When we talk about communication practices, we are looking at how people use verbal and non-verbal language to convey messages. How people use verbal and non-verbal language to convey messages. Of course, this includes speaking, writing, use of gestures, and even use of body language. Then another aspect we can look at under language behavior is social interaction. Social interaction. Here we are looking at the ways language is used in social settings, including informal conversations, formal speeches, and even group discussions. This one includes or involves understanding politeness, turn taking, and actually context-specific language use. You know, when we bring in aspects like understanding, there is politeness, there is turn taking, and the context-specific language use. Here we mean that when we use the word understanding under social interaction, as we are referring to the time when you are having a conversation. You know, a conversation, you are using language, and in that process, there is language behavior being portrayed. So people want to see whether you and your interlocutors are understanding each other. You and the people you are speaking with. They want to look at politeness because language behavior, we don't need to be so rude when we speak. We need to speak in a way that we are polite. We sound polite to our hearers. What about turn taking? When we are speaking, do we wait for others to finish before we chip in for responses? Because we have people who do not know how to listen, to give other people a chance to finish speaking what they are doing, then they can be able to respond. What about context-specific language use? Do we stick to the topic of the day, or do we go and become irrelevant to what we were doing? Then another aspect we can look at under language behavior is variation. So language behavior can differ based on factors like region. Region here, we are talking of, say for example, you are a Kisi. You are neighboring, you are at the border with the Luos. Okay? So, and you are a Kisi who neighbors the Kipsigis. You are a Kisi who neighbors the Maasais. If you go and investigate along these borders, you will find that the Kisi who border the Luos, they don't speak exactly the same Kisi language like those who border the Kipsigis, like those who border the Maasai, because there is that interaction with neighbors from another community affects language behavior of these cases. The same thing. You go to Kapsabet as you are going to Western. We have a border where we have Nandis bordering the Luyas, the Maragoli. We have people we call it tricky around there. So the Kalenjin language or the Nandi language those people are speaking is not the same as those who neighbor others in other different areas. So variation is based on a factor like now region. That's what I was trying to explain. There is also variation in socioeconomic status. So you look at a poor person and a rich person. The children from a rich home who have gone to good schools, the people around them speak that fine English. And those in the rural areas, parents are poor. They have gone to those schools near home where even the teachers speak with accent. Their language is different. The English they speak is different. It's not the same. We have ethnicity. When we talk about variation in language behavior, ethnicity. Now we want to bring in things to do with accent. All of us speak English. A Turkana is speaking English. A Teso is speaking English. A Meru is speaking English. A Kikuyu is speaking English. But if you listen to these Englishes, you will find that they are different. And you are able to say, that one sounds like a Luo. I mean, they are not speaking in Luo language, they are speaking in English, but you are able to say that one must be a Luo. You are able to say, even if they are speaking in English, that one must be a Meru. Why? Because of ethnicity. Variations come by influenced by ethnicity. Our first languages influence the way we speak the second language. They influence the way we speak the second language. Like now, leave alone that one. If you hear a Nigerian speaking English, then you hear a Ugandan, then you hear a Kenyan. Even if all of them are speaking in English, you are able to say that one must be from Nigeria, this one must be from Uganda, this one from Kenya, and so on. Another aspect under variation is age, your age. Your age can affect language behavior. Let's imagine that someone is speaking over the radio, and an old man is speaking. We haven't been told their age, but we're just listening to their speeches. You are listening to their speeches. The way they choose their words, you will be able to say that this speech is from a young person and this speech is from an old person. And even gender, even if you were to read novels, okay, written by the writers who are, they have not indicated the writers of this novel. But as you read, you will be able to say at the end of the day that this one must have been written by a woman. This one must have been written by a man. And even the way men speak, where they are, the topics they talk about are different from the topics the women talk about. Interests are different, so they affect language behavior. Language behavior is about choice of words, choice of topics, okay? Choice of sentences. The way you construct what sentences can be seen is that this sentence is from a woman, this one is from a man. You know, there are those who are known for nagging. I don't know whether it is women who love nagging or the men. But you shall look at this when you are in second semester. And we shall be doing sociolinguistics. So dialects, in short, under this variation, dialects, slang, and even accents are examples of how language behavior varies. So under this language behavior again, aside from communication practices, social interaction, and variation, we have an aspect of language acquisition. This is the process through which individuals, and more specifically children, learn to understand and produce language. This includes both first language acquisition and the second language learning. You know, first language you have to acquire it. Nobody's going to teach you. First language you acquire it. When you are between 1 year to 2 years, those people around you speak to you, so you also imitate them. So you acquire language through the caregivers, the people who take care of you. You're not going to school to acquire your first language. You speak what you hear people speaking around you. So environment here matters so much. That is why when you have an infant, make sure the person taking care of them is a good communicator. But second language learning, this one you have to learn. This one now you formally learn second language, like the way you have learned English in schools. The teacher of English comes in to teach you English, so you start learning it. So another aspect under this language behavior is pragmatics. Pragmatics. This is now the study of how context influences the interpretation of meaning in communication. This includes understanding implied meanings, sarcasm, and even speech acts. That was on language behavior. Now, when we look at language systems, because the topic was on language behavior and language systems, systems now is something familiar with you because you have been talking about that. This one refers to the structural and the functional aspects of language itself. And when we bring in the words structural and functional, actually we are looking at the branches of linguistics, where you have to talk about phonetics and phonology, which is the study of sounds in language, including the physical properties of speech sounds. Physical properties of speech sounds, we call this phonetics. When you study physical properties of speech sounds, you are doing phonetics. But when you study the rules governing sound patterns, how sounds should be combined to form words. That is now phonology. So another thing under this, or the component of these language systems, is morphology, which is the study of the internal structure of words. Internal structure of words. Here we include how morphemes here refer to the smallest units of meaning. Smallest units of meaning. How they combine to form words. People should not leave the class. People should not leave the class. I'm expecting about 500 students, but I can see only 200. So you make sure I am able to capture additional number. So another aspect or a component we can look at under language systems is syntax. Syntax, which is the set of rules and guidelines that show us how words can combine to form correct sentences. So this includes sentence structure, word order, and even grammatical relationships. Actually, syntax is about grammar. It's about formation of correct sentences. Correct sentences which agree with principles, with rules that are in place in that language. Then you have semantics, that is the study of meaning in language. Semantics is about the study of meaning in language. This one focuses on how words and sentences convey meaning. Semantics is about the meaning of sentences, meaning of words. So when you study of words, meaning of sentences, you are doing semantics as a linguist. Then we have pragmatics. This is also a part of language behavior. It focuses on the abstract rules that show us how context affects meaning. How context affects meaning. I think I must have given an example of this in class physically. Then lastly, you have discourse analysis. This is where when you study language use across longer stretches of text or a conversation, you examine how meaning is constructed beyond individual sentences. That is now discourse analysis. So what is the connection? How is language behavior and language systems connected? They are connected in several ways. One we can look at is influence of structure on use. Influence of structure on use. So the rules and the structures of language systems influence how individuals behave linguistically. You know, when you know the rules, that is now syntax. You will be able to behave according to those rules. You will be able to construct sentences according to the grammatical rules that are available in that language. So, for example, knowledge of grammar affects how people construct sentences in a conversation. That's what I was explaining. So when you construct sentences in your conversation, that is language behavior. And when you use these rules, grammar, to construct these sentences, that's now you are using the aspect of language system. Number two, we have contextual variation. Contextual variation. So language behavior can lead to shifts in language systems over time. As new forms of communication emerge and they shape linguistic norms. Language behavior, for example, now we're talking about internet slang. You know, when the internet came, things to do with computer technology, so many new words have come by. They have come by. Now we are using new words that have not been there. Okay? So many words have been brought into English that have not been there. So when they come in, that is an aspect of language behavior because they are being used. And now language systems have to adjust. They have to adjust and accommodate this in their systems. We have number three, we have cultural factors where language behavior and language systems are influenced by cultural contexts. Are influenced by cultural context, where different cultures may have varying norms for communication that affect both the structure of language and its use. You know, in some cultures, there are some words you cannot use. They may call those words taboo words. Okay. Or there's which mean maybe there is a word in this language. When you speak it in another language, when you use it in another language, I mean where other people are who do not speak your language, maybe it means a taboo word with them. So culture influences the way language behaves and how language systems can be adjusted. Now we move to semiotics. We move to semiotics. Semiotics. I hope you've been looking at these notes so you don't find any word unfamiliar. Semiotics. Semiotics, we can say it is the study of signs and the symbols. especially as elements of language or other systems of communication. Semiotics. This is the study of signs and the symbols and their use or interpretation. In the context of life, semiotics provides insight into how meaning is constructed, how meaning is conveyed, and how meaning is interpreted through various linguistic signs and symbols. This topic was semiotics in language and the concepts. So before we go far, we can say that many of the terms and the concepts used by, say, contemporary semioticians were introduced by a linguist by the name Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand, you can be able to spell that. Ferdinand de, that is D-E, then Saussure. Saussure is S-A-S-S-U-R-E. A linguist known as Ferdinand de Saussure in the year 1857 to 1930. So the concepts that we are talking about here include sign. That is a concept, sign. There is a concept we call langue. There is a concept we call parole. All these were in the course outline, so you must be familiar with them. So it is Ferdinand who came up with all this. So semiotics, semiotic studies it is the study of meaning making. It is the study of meaning making. For you to study meaning making, you have to include the study of signs and the sign processes. Sign processes, we call that semiosis. We call that semiosis. When you do this, when you study signs and sign processes, actually you are looking at the indication, what the signs and the sign processes indicate, the signation, likeness, analogy, talk of metaphor, talk of symbolism, talk of signification, and the communication. Langue, L-A-N-G-U-E, is a French word meaning language. It means language. Langue means language in simple terms. And the parole means speaking, or you can call it performing or performance. So, sign, langue, and parole are linguistic terms distinguished by Ferdinand de Saussure in his book that we call General Linguistics. Language encompasses the abstract, systematic rules and conventions. Language encompasses the abstract, systematic rules and conventions of a signifying system. I wanted to note that language involves the principles of language without which no meaningful utterance. Utterance here, as I said, speaking is parole. When put parole in brackets, would be possible. So I say language involves the principles of language without which no meaningful utterance, that is parole, will be possible. So what is parole? Parole refers to the concrete instance of the use of language. Parole refers to the concrete instance of the use of language. So in semiotics, a sign is anything that communicates a meaning. So a sign is typically composed of signifier. You have to write that, or you have in your notes. Signifier. You can spell that correctly. We have signifier, whereby signifier is the form of the sign. I want you to understand these terms. The form of the sign, such as a word, an image, or a sound. So a signifier, I want you to take an example of a word like chair. Chair. So chair is a signifier. Chair is a signifier. Now, after signifier, we have signified. Signified. Whereby signified refers to the concept or a meaning that the signifier refers to. So the chair itself, the one you sit on, that tangible object, is now what we call signified, as an example. So that tangible object you can sit on is what is called signified. But signified is the word chair. The word chair. So it's just that is a form. That is a signifier. The signified is that object, that chair that you can see, you can touch, you can sit on it. So, language is a sign system. All these things we are saying, we use them for us to communicate. So, language is a sign system. It is actually a complex system of signs. It's a complex system of signs where words serve as signifiers that denote ideas, objects, actions, and so forth. An example you are given in the notes is the word tree. Tree. So tree is signifier. The word tree is signifier. So this one corresponds to the mental image or a concept of a tree. You look outside there, you see a tree. Or sometimes if you don't see it, it comes into your mind how it looks like. So you look at that object, even if it is not visible to where you are, but in your mind, you have known how it looks like. You look at the word, then in your mind, you have that picture of a tree. So the tree now that you have in your mind is the signified, or the one you are able to see out there is the signified. But the word tree is just called a signifier. Languages vary. Languages vary in their structure and the rules. They vary in their structure and the rules. But they all operate on the principle of signification, what we have been explaining earlier. They operate on the principle of signification. So it is either signifier or signified. Where the meanings of words can change based on context, based on culture, and even usage. Now, another aspect is on semantics as a concept in semiotics. This field of semantics within semiotics deals specifically with the meaning. It examines how meaning is generated or interpreted within language. How meaning is generated and interpreted within language. So semantic theories normally explore relations such as synonymy. Synonymy refers to similar in meanings. Similar meanings. You may have two words, two different words, but which have similar meanings. You could be having some example. Two words which mean the same thing. Antonymy refers to opposite meanings. Antonymy. If someone asks you for examples, you must be able, there's no question you will answer without illustrations. Illustrations mean examples. Antonymy, this one is opposite meanings. Words which have opposite meanings. Like you can talk of old and the young, cold and hot. Then you have polysemy. Polysemy is multiple meanings of a single word. A word with very many meanings. Then you have homonymy. Homonymy, this is identical forms with different meanings. Identical forms with different meanings. For example, you can talk of bank, that financial institution, and the bank, that place near a river. So they are identical, but the meanings are different. Then we have pragmatics, and as a concept in semiotics. As we have been saying this, but as we say repeatedly, it will be able to stick in you and be understood better. This is a study of context and its role in meaning making. Context and the role of context in meaning making. So, pragmatics examines how meaning is constructed, not only through language signs, but also through contextual factors, through social conventions, and also through speaker intentions. So the notion of speech acts. Speech acts here now refers to how utterances can perform actions. This is what is central here. Then we have number 5, you have cultural semiotics. Cultural semiotics. We know that language and culture are inseparable. So cultural semiotics examines how signs are understood within specific cultural frameworks. Emphasizing the importance of shared knowledge and societal norms in the interpretation of meaning. So, language behavior, we can add this. Language behavior encompasses how individuals use language in a social context. This includes speech patterns, which refers to the way individuals or groups use language to signal identity. Someone has raised their hand up. Joan Hasiala. So I don't see your admission number. I said people should enter class with admission numbers. Wait, you note down your concerns. I will be able to give you time. You ask what you want to ask. So speech patterns, I was on language behavior and I was talking about speech patterns. The way individuals or groups of people use language. And the way they use this language can signify or they can signal their identity. It can signal their social status, and it can also signal their cultural affiliations. This one, we have said this earlier. That is now to do with socioeconomic status. From the way you speak, people are able to identify you. Then we have language variation. That is factors like region, social class, age, and ethnicity. They can also affect how language is used. We said this earlier. And we said this leads to what we call dialectical differences and the variations in speech. You can move to, I don't know that you are able to have that public chat where you can write what you want to. Where you can chat and maybe say what you want to say. I'm still on. Don't break. Don't leave the class. We have also what we call language and the individual. Language and the individual. As we have been saying, that language serves not only as a means of communication, but also as a critical tool for shaping identity, for expressing thoughts and feelings, and influencing social interactions. So one we can look at is identity formation. This one we have said before, that language often reflects your cultural background. There is also personal identity, where you have individual differences or preferences in language use, such as dialect, slang, or even choice of words can convey aspects of personality and individuality. But there are people who use language in a way that you are able to identify them. Especially when you listen to these politicians, you will be able to hear and know that this is so and so because of the choice of words that they are used to. There's also expression of thought and emotion. Under this one, you can talk of language shaping how we think. Language shapes how we think. There is a writer by the name Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, who suggests that structure of a language affects its speakers, worldview and cognition. Meaning, worldview here means the way you interpret what you see near you or around you. When you look at something, the way you construct meaning out of it. That is what we can call worldview. We also have social interaction. Under this, you have communication skills, where you can talk of proficiency in language affecting how individuals interact with others. You also have power dynamics under social interaction, where you can say that language also reflects or creates hierarchies in social situations, where you have the choice of formal or informal language. And this can signal different levels of power or familiarity. Then you have education and literacy as number 4. You have language acquisition and development. Under this language acquisition and development, you have as like bilingualism or multilingualism, where you have individuals who speak multiple languages. And we say that each language they speak can influence their thinking and identity differently. So going down in those notes, you will see where you have language of parole and the language. Actually, it was supposed to be language, but that's was typing error. Language of parole and the language. So what I explained about language and the parole, you can see that in detail so you understand more what it means. So today, I will be able to send you a card where you will do individually. You will do individually where you write all the details, your name, your admission number, the course code, the course title, the assignment, the topic of the assignment, and then I want it handwritten. I don't want typed. Handwritten. I'll send this to your class rep who will be able to give you, and then you do it within a week. So what I give you today, I'll wish to have it by next week. Not next week, but the other week on Monday. I give you a week, then you give me after that weekend on Monday. Class rep, I think, has heard that. And now, next time we meet, we shall be talking about language and thought. Language and thought. But I want to urge you to be reading these notes because we may not have much time to have classes. But what you have in the notes is what is supposed to be given to you. So if anybody comes, I'll be going through these notes, and that is all. So I'll give you one of the topics here to handle, but you handle individually. And make sure your work does not look the same as your colleagues. If they do, then I will nullify. But all the same, I want to thank you for coming to class. I know it's supposed to be 550, but you see now you are only 200.